What's up, witches?
What's up?
I'm Linda,
And I'm John.
and this is Getting Witchy. And today we are talking Astrology 101 with my herbalism mentor and astrology diva, Juliana Rossel from Moon Diva Astrology. Say hi, Juliana.
Hello. Hi.
All right. So, how long have you been doing astrology?
So since my youngest was in my womb, so that's how long I've been studying it. And then I finally went out and started doing readings around the time of my divorce. So I would say my daughter was maybe around 7, so 10 years that I've been actually officially doing astrology and giving readings. So before that, it was a little like it wasn't okay. Like in the family I was in, it was, hidden and
Right.
yeah.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
So, um, I've always been interested in astrology, and my mom was kind of into it once upon a time when she was into some of the esoteric stuff. Um, but honestly, my experience, other than the tarot readings in the frickin' newspaper, that's pretty much the extent. Because when I did do some research, it reminds me of the tarot in a way, because the tarot has so many different facets to it:
Mhm.
numerology, astrology, the elements. I mean, so I found that astrology was equally complicated. So how did you simplify it for yourself, or did you?
Yeah, I think so. The way I was taught, it was like I was being taught by a madman, like a mad hatter. Like he would speak in riddles. Um, he spoke English, but I didn't really it was a lot to understand. And so then I somehow simplified it. I feel like I have more of a teacher way. Like I like working with young children. I can teach piano and math and those type of things. So you start to simplify like, okay, how do I take this complex understanding and make it really simple and then build on it? So, like starting off with this is a middle C on the piano, and this is an eighth note or a quarter note, and this is what it looks like, and this is how I draw a quarter or eighth note, and then building on that, right?
Right.
And learning rhythm and learning all the other notes, and then putting it together, and it's like an orchestra. So astrology is very mathematical. It doesn't mean that you can't learn it if you're, if you're really not good at math. But there's a lot of patterns to it, just like music. Um, so if you can look at it that way, so when I do teach it, I'm building because you can't really play Beethoven unless you learn chopsticks, right? You kind of have to start and simplify it. So I think it is different than tarot in that respect. And I think that tarot is more like a practice, like you're building on it from your experience of like, okay, I learned about this card. And then over time, I go, like, this is the general stuff about this card, right? So if it falls, you're like, oh, I can put it together with all the other stuff. That's maybe how it's a similar too, because when you're like, okay, well, a planet's transiting a house, it may not manifest the same way for everybody, but there's these general things that it does, so same thing with these cards. When you throw a card, there's a general, you know, there's general information about it that might apply to that person. So it's like an art form too. But I would say tarot cards don't have, I don't think it's as mathematical. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I mean, they use
Yeah.
numerology, but it's not really mathematics per se. Whereas from some of the research I saw her doing prior to us meeting with you today, um, I was looking at freaking algebra on the. I mean, like, I'm like, I did good in that class, but I do not know what the heck that is. It just seemed really overwhelming based on just. Yes, I was looking over her shoulder, but I mean, it
Yeah.
seems kind of intense.
And for the most part, we can learn algebra, right? We learned it in school. But we always build up to it. So it's something that if somebody really wanted to learn astrology, they would just need to start with the basics and build and not try to jump to algebra until
Right.
they really understand the basics. Um, yeah, if you don't even know what that symbol is called, like that's where you need to start, right?
Right.
Right.
You know, so yeah, I think it's also different too from tarot. I was going to bring this up, and I don't remember if this was one of your original questions. But astrology doesn't have that old, like portals. Like, you know how tarot cards, there's portals opened and you're kind of playing with the spiritual world and you're asking, that type of that realm. So there's this old energy that's very occult that is attached to tarot cards. So there's definitely an emphasis on needing to protect ourselves, needing to be very careful with tarot, like going into it with good intentions, sealing and closing up the energy at the end, where astrology doesn't have that. So you're just reading it like it's, a piece of music. So it's a language. Um, so it's nice, like if you really want to get started and you're not sure about how to protect yourself and do what you need with tarot or some other things that also open portals, like this would be a good start. Kind of like angel cards versus tarot cards,
Yeah.
right? Angel cards are not going to have the need to protect as much, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's if you believe in that. But, I do believe that tarot cards are very powerful. And I think that we do need to be responsible with them. And they're a great add-on to astrology. I think they can work really well together.
And that was one of the
Um,
questions.
that was your question. Yeah.
That was one of the questions. Like, so with that being said, how would you work with them together and piggyback?
Yeah, there's actually a deck, Aleister Crowley deck, I believe. So he was a famous astrologer that was very occult that actually made a deck. And so you can take that deck and maybe, put it next to the more traditional deck and see what the similarities are. But there's a lot of things about each of those cards that correspond to planets, and signs and that sort of thing. So there's that overlap. But really, when you're giving a reading, you're reading the chart like an art form, and then you can do a couple cards to go with it, and it's just very validating and confirming.
Gotcha.
Yeah, same thing with if a medium is giving a reading, or speaking to spirits and that sort of thing and giving a reading, she can at the end pull some cards. And again, once again, it's probably talking about what they just talked about, right? It's
Right.
amazing how it relates.
Right. So
And I was working,
go ahead.
yeah, I worked with a astrologer too. So she would be seeing my clients and then I would be seeing my clients and it would overlap. And we were saying the same thing. We didn't even talk ahead of time. Like it came up the same way, so I really feel like there's that connection.
And when you say your clients, you mean the herbalism clients?
I do have astrology clients,
Mhm.
and then I have herbal clients that might do astrology or astrology clients that might do herbal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's that separation.
Gotcha.
So basically, doing the chart and then pulling the tarot cards would be like if you're doing a tarot reading just by itself, adding the clarifier card, like on top of something. Like,
yes.
Okay, I have a question about this card. Let me draw another one, put it on top of it, kind of thing.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So in astrology, like, what are the main key components?
So astrology is the relationship of the planets with us. Mm-hmm. So think of yourself as like the center of the universe. So that's your natal chart, the chart you were born with. And we're all stars, So we all are our own universe. And then you have the planets that are interacting with you. So it's that relationship, and we have free will and we can supersede our chart. We have to have that intention. We have to work with the energy. So it's not that those planets are doing something to you or forcing something to happen. It's that interaction between. So that's the really basic definition of astrology.
Now, doesn't the astrology figure like the sun and the moon as a planetary body individually?
Yes, so they incorporate that, yes.
So it's not just like Venus and Mars and Neptune and that, but they also consider any celestial body
Yes,
is
yeah.
explaining that
So the
theory.
moon and the sun are your luminaries.
Okay.
And that brings up that question about the 13th sign. So I looked into that. I don't use the 13th sign.
Okay.
But what I think the reasoning for I think why they're saying that there's a 13th sign is because when you have a sun sign, it's a season of that sign, and the sun is actually going through that constellation. So it's going through Taurus, it's going through Aries, and that's why it's a sun in Aries or a sun in Taurus. So at the end of the year, it's actually going through that new zodiac sign during the time of Sagittarius. And Sagittarius, the sun is actually going through the Sagittarius constellation at the same time as well as like the following month. So it has a bigger spread. So, and that has changed over the years. So normally the sun would be in Capricorn during what we consider Capricorn season, but it's no longer. It's pushed into the Aquarius time. And that's just because of the way that we're observing it and seeing it. So then I would go, okay, well, why don't we just shift everybody over a month? But if you really look at their chart and you're doing this all the time with people, there's no doubt that they're a Capricorn. They're not Aquarius. They're not Sagittarius. They are a Capricorn. So I feel like the old energy of the sign being in the sun being in that zodiac sign is really accurate. So this new understanding of the sun moving through this new zodiac sign, like maybe that applies to some people, but I would really still stick with that 12
What we
sign
then
concept. Yeah, and play with it. I think there's so many different ways to look at astrology, and it's an art form. So, like if you resonate with the whole sign versus the Placidus, I can never pronounce it, but the sign with the division of the chart when it's not perfect. So whole sign will be everything's perfect, like the pie is all the same.
okay.
Um, but the other chart that I use, it's like one house might be a sliver in that pie and the other one looks really big. So then the transiting time will be different for the planets through the houses. And one might be more accurate than the other for you or somebody else. So you really, if you do feel compelled to look into that, you can try it and see if it's true for you. And you might want to be an astrologer that just does that, like
When you
that
say
whole sign or
houses,
the
are you
Placidus.
talking about the actual constellations? When you say house,
The houses.
yeah.
So the map of the sky when you were born, it they sectioned it into 12 different houses, and each house section correlates with a different aspect of your life. So one piece of the pie will be about just you as an individual. Another piece might be your relationship with your partner or your marriage partner. Another aspect might be just family or siblings or children. So, as these planets orbit in relationship to you, it's going to be orbiting and transiting through those houses at different times in your life, activating it for you to work with that energy or not, right? So there's a flow. So we're kind of in time with this interaction or in time with the moon phases, you know. So I think that's probably the basic thing to look at is if you can start with the moon. And, you know, we have a full moon and new moon. A lot of people really know what that is at this point, and just see how you feel around those times. So you're interacting with that energy, that luminaire, right?
So, what is necessary in order to get your birth chart actually plotted out?
Yes, yeah. So if you don't have your exact birth time, um, a lot of astrologers will recommend like going back to your hometown. Sometimes there's records at your town hall. Sometimes going back and getting your birth certificate, but getting some form of your birth certificates that's the original. Because a lot of people would handwrite the birth certificate, send it in, somebody would type it into the system, and then it wouldn't be accurate. It wouldn't have the time on it. So you might be able to find the time that way. Asking your parents is not necessarily the most accurate way to do it. My mom will call me on the same time every single year, but come to find out when I actually looked in my baby book, it was 9 minutes off. So if you have a baby book, I think that's pretty accurate because usually around that time, that's when they knew the time that was the most clear to them. Even somebody found a photograph at the hospital and somebody hand wrote the birth time. So you might have a picture of the baby like being held by dad or grandpa, and somebody writes the information.
That might be something to wait. See, so I'm one of those people that I have no freaking clue what time I was born. I feel like it was sometime early in the morning, but I don't know. I have tried to get a birth certificate, but it's a generic. It just says, "Hey, you were born on this date." It's
Yeah.
got my name and the county that I was born in, and that's it. Like, there's no. I mean, it lists my mom and dad, but that's like the most generic of information it could give. And then when I tried to petition Broward County, which is where I was born, for any records, I was trying to do something different. I hadn't
Yeah.
contacted them about like the original birth certificate. Unfortunately, there was a fire and everything was lost, like decades of records.
Yeah, they hadn't computerized
Thousands
anything
and
yet.
thousands of people were just lost.
Whoa.
So, like, for in this situation, it's kind of, now I'm going to look on the pictures because Grandma came to give me quite a bit of pictures before she passed. And, you know, the older generation, they did things like write the time on it. And
Yep.
they wrote on the back who was actually on the pictures. So then you know when you're looking at it 30 years from now.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm going to try that. But if that doesn't follow through, what could someone do if they want to try to get a semi-accurate chart, but really have no way to find out the time?
Yes.
Can they get
Yeah. There are ways. It's still not 100% accurate, but it can get it maybe down to about 15 minutes. It's called rectification. There are some astrologers that will do it. They really recommend having some idea. So if everybody told you were born when the crows, crowed in the morning, then at least it's narrowing it down to the morning versus at nighttime.
right?
So within like a 12-hour period is a little bit better, versus having nothing. But they can narrow it down based on your events. So significant events in your life, they'll interview you. It's very tedious. It takes a lot of work. So if they do charge according, like expect it.
Yeah.
I always think of like you have to be really Virgo, if all the Virgos out there listening, to really want to do it. I've done it a couple times.
That's me,
Um,
by the way.
okay, good.
Virgo.
Yeah. Um, Now, with my father's chart, because I don't have his birth certificate, I was at night just hoping to have that download, because my teacher said just like intuitively come up with the time, and it was pretty close. Like when we finally cast that chart, some things really stood out as accurate because he had lost his mother when he was young, and so then his moon was in his 12th house, which could mean that you lose your mom. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to lose their mom, but so there are things that kind of stood out that, wow, that time is probably very close. So if you are intuitive, so maybe there's that, you get the number, just a flash of it when you're ready to fall asleep or in a dream. And then you can see if that astrologer can cast your chart and see if it's pretty close based on, what number you came up with. But yeah, it's astrologers should say no when you don't have your exact birth time because it can be very inaccurate. And just like a medium or a tarot reader, like what is told to you, like what is said to
Oh,
you,
you
it
have to
goes
go by.
into your psyche. Yeah, and you have to be very wise and very careful about not putting stuff in somebody's mind because they're going to dwell on that for probably 10 years, right? Whatever was said in that reading. Um, so as much as you can, try to find your time. Or like I said, you can intuitively do it or on a picture.
Right.
I don't know. It's like, why is it that some of us just don't have our exact birth time? Like it's almost not fair, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was doing the research, I actually put that question into Google, like, why do we need our specific birth time? And one of the answers that came up is that even if you're off by just 2 minutes, it could change the placement of one of the planets or the constellation itself. So the more accurate you can be, the better off the reading will go.
Yeah, and I talked to another astrologer because mine was 9 minutes off. So it was like an identity crisis to go 10 years, well, actually more than 10 years, probably almost 20 years, seeing my chart a certain way. And then 3 planets moved into different houses in
Oh,
9 minutes. And I was like, oh, it's been so now I have to relearn. But she said, Juliana, it's on the cusp. So it's like it was going into that house anyways, or it was in that, so she said, well, you would resonate with the also being in the other house because it was so close, right? And I'm like, that makes more sense to me that I could relate to both houses because that planet was so close.
So you're still being
Um,
influenced by it anyway.
And
yeah.
that's what,
And I think that,
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, I think if I were to do a rectification chart for somebody, I might cast like within 15 degrees, like 2 charts, and then have that conversation. Do you resonate with this or do you resonate with that? If
Yeah.
there's like 2 planets off, let's narrow it down within that 15 minutes. So it's a good way to have that conversation. Okay.
So
That was my thought.
you just made a statement of being on the cusp. So my knowledge of my astrology is I'm a Virgo on the Libra cusp. So what exact, I kind of got an idea because you just basically said it, but for those that didn't catch that and aren't familiar with the term, so what does it mean to be on the cusp of another sign?
Yeah, so cusp means 2 things, I guess. So cusp means when your sun sign is on the cusp, it means that within that day, it changed from one sign to the next. So say you were born in the morning, it's still going to be in Libra or Virgo, because Virgo comes first. And then if you were born that evening of that same day, you would be Libra. So if you know that you're in the morning, we could look at that and see, is it still in Virgo? Did it turn into Libra? Because people are walking around thinking they're Scorpios, and I'm like, you're not a Scorpio, you're a Sagittarius, because they think that day, right, based on like that general, but every year it's going to look a little different, and you really do need to know that exact time because in a day it will change into a whole nother sign. Where the cusp that I was referring to was in that 12 houses circle, your astrology chart. So it's moving from one house to the next. That line between like the first and second house will be a cusp. So that planet will move over that line, similar to the sun being, in Virgo and then going into Libra.
So I actually have my birth chart. Let me see if I can get it open here. Well, because I did it a few years ago, right around the time that COVID was big, and I had, my parents had both passed away. I was taking this little online course called Witch in a Weekend, and one of the things that they talked about was the astrology, your birth chart. Oh, no, this is the additional information. Where's the other one? Well, let me
I'm
just
better
pull
at
up.
reading, like seeing the chart. Yeah.
So actually, let's just do, so this is what a blank chart would look like, right? That's what a blank one looks like.
Yes.
So my understanding is that this right here, that's the ascendant, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's basically the starting point of the birth chart, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So each of these little wedges that are numbered, 1 through 12 counterclockwise, those are the houses?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. So, when filling out this chart, what are the most important things to look at?
The big three. I always say, like, if you go to an astrology party, make sure you know your big three. And that would be your ascendant sign, your moon sign, and your sun sign.
Okay.
So your sun will be during that season. That's what we usually know. That's your zodiac sign. So it's called a sun
My
sign.
sun sign is Virgo.
Right.
Yeah. And then your moon sign, every 2.5 days it changes sign. And that's the moon orbiting through that constellation.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll go every 2.5 days through the next sign. So you would be able to find that out based on, so John could probably figure out his moon, even without his exact birth time, as long as the moon was still in that same sign the whole entire day, then that would be his moon. And the ascendant, that's the tricky part. Like I remember my sister giving birth to my nephew, and I was holding my phone like every minute, because every 15 minutes it seemed like it was, he's going to be a Pisces rising, if he comes now. And then, if he comes in another 15 minutes, he's going to be this sign. So that's what really changes and makes a huge difference. That's harder to know when you don't have your exact time. But your rising sign or ascendant sign is supposed to be the most significant part of your astrology chart. So that's why your time is so important. Um, so if that answers that. And then there's some exceptions to those big three. If you have something conjuncting your ascendant, that's going to be like a
And what?
higher card.
Conjunction.
Conjunction.
Conjuncting, like conjunction. What's your function?
Yes.
Um, from our generation. So yeah, if you have a planet on that ascendant or rising sign, um, it could be significantly different, the energy of that original sign that's there. So you're going to want to know that too. So even though you're Sagittarius, you might have Pluto on your ascendant, and now you're very Plutonian, which is very Scorpio, very different than a Sagittarius. So, that's why when you get your chart done, you're going to learn more than just those big three. And it makes you very unique from everyone else.
So I know there are quite a few websites online where you can get your birth chart done. Do you find those to be accurate?
I would recommend trying a couple, and if they both come up the same way, then it's probably pretty accurate.
Okay.
So astrologers will use probably a fancy program. I use Solar Fire, which is one of the best ones out there. And sometimes it doesn't line up with, like, if I'm looking up a celebrity and I want to see what they are, I'm like, I'm not getting the same thing. And it could be just, the program. So somebody out there did cast somebody's chart to see what the celebrity was. But if you see like four charts the same way and one's off, most likely the one of those four is probably more accurate. So just try a couple, I think. And if you're still getting like misinformation, like they're not lining up, then maybe try another one, or definitely contact an astrologer, and then they'll have a more accurate chart.
Okay. Because, yeah, I was actually running mine today on a few of the different websites just to see like how they would match up. And one of them actually had Chiron in the placement, but the other two did not have Chiron, but they had Lilith.
Yeah.
And I thought that was
What the heck?
very interesting.
Did you see that?
Yes, I did. Mercury retrograde going on right now. That is pretty wild. I wouldn't even know how to do that.
We didn't touch anything on the computer or the screen.
I didn't touch anything either.
That's crazy. Okay.
Balloons. Okay. Anybody's birthday coming up?
So what are those two, like you just mentioned?
So
Chiron and Lilith?
Yeah.
So what is that with?
They're asteroids.
Yeah, they're asteroids.
Oh.
Yeah. So Lilith is the dark side of the moon. So always look up the mythology on them.
Lilith,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Lilith so when she's in your chart, wherever she's located, she's the area that you really want to be honest with yourself. She might be a little bit more hidden. So it's, okay, take a look at this honestly. This is, because she was very honest and upfront. And then Chiron, yeah. Chiron is the wounded healer. And we're always trying to heal our wound throughout our life. So maybe even, and so much so that we're even helping other people heal that similar wound. So we don't quite heal our wound completely. So there's that ongoing energy of trying to heal, which makes us sometimes really good at doing that. So if you do have Chiron in a significant area, sometimes it shows up as that you are a healer. You may want to do healing work. Or it could be just as simple as like, this is the area that you really want to focus on to help heal your wound. And it can be helpful like when you're doing some of that work, with your astrologer or counselor can help give you
I probably
information.
have that in my chart somewhere because I am a healer, so
Yeah.
it's
So it might
probably
be in a
there.
location that's more significant, yeah,
Right.
for a
So
healer.
now what's now interesting, you again from the beginning of the conversation, we talked about celestial bodies. So even asteroids
Mhm.
are used within the chart and where, because we know where they're at all times, pretty much, for the most
Yeah.
part. So what about, excuse me, does astrology take into account other celestial, like comets?
I don't know. I know there's a list of things that you can put in your chart, like even
Okay.
Cupid. Um, so probably, and I've tried to do that a couple times to see if I resonated with adding more than what I really studied and learned. And it starts to get complicated, and I'm like, I don't see this showing up enough for me to continue using it. So I stick to the stronger aspects or the stronger asteroids that we use. And those asteroids create like a bridge between the personal planets and the outer planets. So it helps you to get to the outer planets, which are very spiritual and awakening. So I'm like, I want to stick with those, right? Versus
Right.
getting too much chatter or too much communication from other stuff. But there are people that really love that. And again, it's similar to, am I a whole sign astrologer? Am I astrologer that does the 13 zodiac signs? Like
Mhm.
what type of an astrologer I am? There might be somebody that just loves asteroids and loves constellations, and how does that work into the
Well,
chart?
I was just curious because I mean most comets only come around every what? There's one that's every 70 years. There's another that's every 2,000 years. So
Yeah.
like the rarity of it, I was just curious if that ever came up. But I mean, you answered that.
I
But
don't know if you can see it in somebody's chart, but I know that like we had asteroid flares yesterday, so people are feeling pretty dizzy and they're feeling these things out there, but I wouldn't know how to like put it in their chart
right,
as an astrologer. But these events that happen, we definitely could use that as an opportunity to do something intentional, to also be aware of it so that if something we're feeling off, it's not, nothing's wrong with us, right? We're not sick. It's just that we feel dizzy because there's an asteroid flare, or something opening up in the universe.
right.
Um, so I can see how that
Retrograde.
would really, yeah, as much as we feel the full moon, why wouldn't we feel a comet? It makes sense to me. It's just hard to measure.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be. Um, I had another question.
I love these questions.
You
I don't know what else do we have on our list.
well, that's it for what we initially sent.
Oh, we went through everything.
Yeah, she touched on one of them before we even got to those.
Oh, that's true. So do you have any recommendations for books or websites that people could go to if they are just beginning and want to learn about?
Yeah, there's one, I think it's called cafeastrology.com.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it would be better for you to study with someone who knows how to do it. But that's a really good site that seems to align with the way that I was also taught. So when I read, what is it to have Venus in the third house, it's pretty accurate.
Right.
Cafe Astrology.
That is actually one
Yeah.
of the ones that I ran my chart through this morning. The only thing I did not like about them is they gave all the information first before even showing me the chart. I had to go almost all the way down to the very bottom to find the chart so that I could know what they were talking about in the beginning. And
Oh
it's like,
yeah, so maybe their format.
no, I need to see the picture. I need to,
Yeah.
so that was the only thing I didn't like about them. I also went through astro.com, which is also known as Astrogene.
Mm-hmm.
That one is the one that uses Chiron in mind. And I thought that was interesting that like they use Chiron, but Cafe Astrology didn't. What was the other one that I used? I think astrology.com used Lilith instead of Chiron. And then there was another one that when it came up, it looked like somebody tried to draw it with the paint program on their computer. And I'm like,
maybe not good.
okay, like that's a really awful graphic, but the information seemed to be accurate. So I'm like, I can forego horrible graphic if the information is correct.
Yeah. There is a good book. Maybe I can even give it to you. I'm looking at my bookshelf that I could give to you later that if you wanted to put it in the comments, that is like an overall
Hmm.
good reference book. When I was studying, and I still use that book, but Robert Hand's is a really good astrology reference book for the transits. And there is a youth book out there too, and I don't know if it's him, if he's the author or not. But yeah, you really want to look at your chart and you go, okay, well, I see Pluto in my seventh house. Then you find a reference that says Pluto in the seventh house, and you learn, kind of like your tarot card, right? Like you learn what that is, and eventually you're like, okay, now I know what Pluto in the seventh house means. I've read this a million times. The transits are tricky. Like if you do get a program that tells you that now you have Venus transiting the third house, then you want to look in a transit book versus Venus in the third house in a natal chart. So you'll want a special book for that. And Robert Hand's is a really good book. You just have to kind of interpret it without, maybe in a more high side, because in our modern day of age now, we're less doomsday, where generations before they were so real and like, yeah, this is going to be a struggle and you should probably, get ready for this roller coaster ride. And then now modern is like, yeah, it's going to be a struggle, but look on the bright side. This could be an opportunity for growth and evolution, so there it's worded differently. So trying to interpret it that way. There are some authors that are a little bit more modern and more uplifting. So that would be a good way to start if you were somebody that, what you read, you really believed, and didn't question. So I hope that helps.
Um, there was something else.
So how would you learn astrology? I think that was your question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think your question was like, how would you learn? What would you use to help you learn
Right,
astrology?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know there's also like apps you can get on your phone. Do you ever use any of those? Have you ever tried?
Yes, there's a good one. I think it's Time Passages that I always recommend my students use. Time Passages. If you are somebody that wants to create more than one chart, like somebody for your family or friends, I would get the pro version. And I believe there might be a membership fee of some sort. When I got it, it was a long time ago, so I don't, I don't have to worry about that anymore. But I just had one fee up front. Um, but that's good. It's very similar to Solar Fire, the look of the chart. So it's very easy to look at and interpret. And they're going to give you just a general idea of like when Pluto is transiting the 12th house, this is what it means. So again, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt because you need to take the whole chart into consideration. It's not just that one thing. Um, so it just seems very vague, right? The information, it's just a good start and it gives you your chart. So, and you can follow it. Like the next day, you can look at it and then it's changed. And then if you want to know what the moon is in today, it'll tell you, so that's a really good app to have. And I think pretty affordable too, as well. I would just skip over all the other ones. That's the best one. Time Passages Pro.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and put that in the comments. I think one other thing I wanted to know is that when I'm looking at my chart, there's a lot of activity in the top half of it. The only thing that's in the bottom half is Chiron.
Okay, yeah.
So, like, does that usually have anything to do with, I mean, depending, because I know the houses, but I think it's Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and Taurus and Gemini are all empty. Except
for you, yeah.
Except for Chiron. Everything else is in all those other ones. I have like 3 Libras, 3 Virgos, 3 Scorpios.
What is going on?
I don't know.
Is somebody watching or is there interaction?
What is that? What just happened?
Did you see the thumbs up?
I have no idea what that was.
I saw something flash. I was listening.
When you go back and look at this video, you're going to have to see because, yeah, I'm not touching my computer at all, and there was a thumbs up bubble.
That's crazy.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we can call it an orb, just in case somebody's playing with us right now.
Yeah.
So 2 things. Empty houses, what does that mean? So empty houses means it's more neutral. So it doesn't give you a planet to give you like an extra talent or a major challenge. It's very neutral, and you can still look into that house to see what that means using the sign. So when you were basically listing your signs. When it's at the top part of your chart, there's lots of energy, lots of planet and activity up there. That's more the outer world. It doesn't necessarily mean you're an extrovert, but it could. But it's more like you're playing with the outer world, like you're in relationship with people, you're having to deal with shared resources, you're out in the public eye, which is the 10th house energy. You're doing networking and community, which is the 11th house. You're spiritual. You have all this outward energy. When you have more planets in the bottom half of your chart, it's more inward. Family stuff, siblings, children, and your relationship with money, your self-esteem, your creativity, your health. So it's very personal at the bottom and then external on the top part of your chart. And not everybody has that clear distinction. So you're going to have like some planets in the bottom, the side, the top, maybe even completely spread out for some of our charts. So it just depends. And an astrologer is looking at where there's congestion. So they're seeing a lot of activity, and then they're trying to teach the client, okay, this is a big area for you to work on, right? There's so much going on here. This is going to give you tools to work through it, to grow and evolve. It might bring up a challenge. Here's the challenge. Let's talk about that so that you can, be prepared, right? Where those neutral houses are like, oh, thank God, I don't have too much there. Maybe a transit will go through and then I'll have to deal with something, right? So hopefully that helps. Because everybody asks me that question. What about like this empty house? What does that mean?
I just thought that was interesting that like the top six. So basically, it was like it would be like 6 through 12, lots of stuff going on there, but then 1 through 5, completely empty. And it's like, except for Chiron chilling off by himself in, I think it was the third house. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just doing these podcasts are getting out to your community, being in the public eye. So you're working the energy that you were asked to be taking a look at. So if you just stayed at home to care your family, your kids, and I know you do that too, but if that's your only focus, then you wouldn't really be using those planets at the top of your chart, where it might be reverse for some of us. So some people have a lot of energy at the bottom, and if they're out in their career, out in the public life and not paying attention to their family, there might be that imbalance again. So it doesn't mean that we're forced into that life. We do have that ability to supersede, like I was sharing before, but it's like something's there for you to still take a look at. Like, I know you want your career, but if you have your son in the fourth house, then maybe like family is really important this lifetime. And you can still do your career, but you got to find some balance, right? Our family keeps calling you back. Why is it I keep on trying to expand my career, but my family keeps calling me back,
Well, I think that's all I had for her.
All I have, yeah.
All right. Well, do you want to go ahead and give everybody your social media contacts so that they can reach out to you if they want to get a reading?
Yeah, so Moon Diva Astrology on Instagram. So you'll see sometimes I'll post videos too, so that might be fun to take a look at. And then herbaljules.com will have my phone number, and I'll have a way to email me. So that's probably an easier way to reach me. And then my name is under Juliana Bishop, so my maiden name Bishop. My new name is Rossel, and it's because I'm married. So I have several different identities.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
Oh, and I'm right there with you too, because I've got several as well. So
Yeah. I'm like, how many names have I had? And then I like being Moon Diva, so Moon Diva Astrology. So I feel like that's fun too. So
all right. Well,
Thank you for your time and joining us.
Yeah, thank
We
you,
appreciate
Juliana.
you.
really great.
I appreciate
Yeah, I
you
hope
doing
we can
this
do
for
this
us.
again.
All right, and I guess I'll see you on Monday.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All
Have
right.
a wonderful day and enjoy your weekend.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.